I do think a differentiating factor that might explain a portion of the success of search fund acquired companies is the emphasis on people. The people in the business drive the value creation. One CEO can't do that much if it's a 50-person business or more. Something that drew me to the search fund ecosystem is this emphasis on the people aspect of the business and taking care of people and growing the business through empowering your team.
Search Party is sponsored by Avid Bank, Boulay, Mayer Brown, Plexus Capital, and Oberle. The lead sponsor is Next Coast Legacy. Hello and welcome to Search Party. I'm David Snow, your host. Today we're joined by Fruchter and Rohit Datta. They are the co-heads of the Columbia Business School Entrepreneurship-Through-Acquisition Club. It is a club, one of many, for students who have an interest in post-MBA, looking for, finding, acquiring, running, and hopefully improving and selling a high-quality, lower middle market business. So we're going to be learning all about what the Columbia program is like, how the ETA Club there is structured, and just what Austin and Rohit believe to be the attributes that are common among people who decide to pursue an ETA career. Gentlemen, welcome to Search Party. Thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to delving in with you two.
Thanks for having us.
Tell me, what is the Columbia ETA Club? How popular is it, and what are you trying to accomplish?
We are the Entrepreneurship-Through-Acquisition Club at Columbia, targeted for anyone who's interested in search funds or like ETA more broadly. We have a few different pillars that we use. So one of them is definitely bringing in people from outside the school, bringing in operators, bringing in investors, bringing in service providers. So those people are really able to delve in on a topic. And so we try to structure a curriculum throughout the semester to bring people through the various phases of search. And then the second part around it is around building a community. Search is a relatively lonely process. We want to make it so that both while you're looking and considering if search is something that you want to do, you discuss that with other people, connect you with like-minded people. And then also our goal is that, after you graduate, you will be able to make those connections that you made in business school will be helpful for you as you're navigating this process.
Austin, how would you describe the popularity of the ETA Club over time?
Yeah, so I would say for the 2 years I've been at business school, there's definitely been a pretty large uptick over last year. I think a lot of that has to do with increased awareness. We're on track to double the number of events this year versus last, and I think there's more socializing, which is good. So people just talk about this outside of class. I think there's more awareness about the actual ETA course we have. I mean, anecdotally, it just seems like a lot more people are interested in pursuing it kind of individually, which that's been exciting to see.
As you talk to your fellow ETA curious students, what do you find to be commonalities in their mindset or their understanding of what the ETA career path represents?
I think there are a lot of individuals that want more tangible work. There might be some folks that come from maybe a higher level corporate job and they almost want to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty. And I think that's great. Having worked in a small business, there's a lot of that. There might be some misconceptions where there's like a range of rolling up your sleeves and some people might not understand just how dirty it can get. To give some of the ETA professors credit, like we took the ETA class with Tom and Clayton, they really go into depth about what might not be so glamorous about the world of small business. And I think it was good because I think some students, probably a small handful, came out of that class and said, you know what, maybe this isn't what I want to do. They showed a photo of an actual office from an actual search acquired business. And it almost looked like a Shutterstock image of what the worst possible office in the world would look like. And there were some students that saw that and they said, you know what, yeah, it's fine. I don't care. I just want to do some hard work.
I've seldom seen a career that comes with as many caveats as the ETA career. Maybe there's an oversupply of people who want to do it for the wrong reasons or something. But talk about the ecosystem at Columbia Business School of whether it's investors, service providers who want to engage with you and your classmates, especially the ones that are interested in ETA. So what do these people within the Columbia Business School network want in a meeting with people like you guys?
They're providing the education and the knowledge, and they're visiting the campus because their hope is that people who are going to do a search fund are interested in, you will work with them when they actually graduate and do it. I think that There's certainly a bit of guidance that we try to do, and that was one of the focuses of our club this year as a whole, was to look at where we think there was a weakness in knowledge, where there was a demand for knowledge, using that to really guide through the topics that people would cover. We noticed that there was a lot of questions on the legal side of things. And so this coming semester, we're doing more work with lawyers. There's a lot of things that you can kind of talk about in abstract, but then there's some about the nitty-gritty questions around what happens when this happens. And debt providers, it's another similar thing. There's a lot of people at Columbia that are interested in doing self-funded, and so they might be, engaging with these SBA lenders a lot. And the SBA lenders, this is a great source of new clients that could be there for them.
We wish we had more time because there are so many investors that, we would love to get to campus, but we have a limited amount. I think we have 12 weeks per semester. You're going to put on 2 events per week. But I'd say investors are really, all of them want to come to campus and they meet with students. And we've done a pretty good job of getting more investors on campus, or even just getting their information out there for club members. And it's been exciting. There are students that I know from the first year that did not know anything about search funds. And now they're coming in to the second year and they're fundraising and they're having success and they're talking to all these investors that didn't even come to campus.
Let's take a quick break to learn about a partner for growth in the lower middle market, Plexus Capital. Every Plexus Capital investment begins with a foundation of trust. The team approaches all partnerships through the lens of its CARE values, grounding principles that guide the team's decision-making. Care about our people. Always do what's right. Respect each other and our partners. Expect excellence. Plexus Capital has been providing debt and equity capital to lower middle market businesses since 2005 and began partnering with the search community in 2010. Since inception, the firm has deployed over $2.4 billion into over 190 small businesses. Given the team's expertise and track record, you could say Plexus Capital has large firm capabilities with a small deal focus. Look for commentary from Plexus Capital professionals in episodes of Search Party. Okay, now back to the episode. Who are these investors and why do they want to spend time with MBA students who are interested in ETA? What is the ideal outcome of those kinds of interactions?
It seems like there is quite a bit of capital going into search fund investment vehicles, be it some of the legacy players or new firms that are starting up. And so they need to deploy. And historically, MBA programs have been a great place to start. You almost think it is business development for the investors. So usually they'll try to come to every school and talk to students and hopefully find a searcher or two. You try to kind of separate search from venture capital or private equity in ways. But in a lot of ways, the search round is almost like a venture shot where you hope it'll hit. But if it doesn't, that's okay. Because there are some funds, some funds will invest in call it 5 searchers per year. Some funds I've heard of investing in 20 to 25 plus.
What do people want from an ideal investor? Obviously the capital's out there, but is there an awareness or a preference for certain kind of attributes, like they should really understand how to build a small business, or they've got a great referral network? What have you discussed amongst your classmates?
There are some potential searchers that really want transaction support. And so maybe you'll look for an investor that maybe has more of a private equity background or just a background doing a lot of transactions in general. And then maybe there's somebody that wants more operating support. There could be somebody that came from private equity and they say, listen, I'm fairly comfortable with the transaction side and sourcing a business, but I could use some help in actually operating the small business. I don't know what it's like to run a business that's doing $5-10 million a year in revenue. I've worked on deals where they're doing $1 billion plus in revenue. It's really helpful to speak with searchers that have actually worked with these investors, or even operators that have worked with these investors. Pretty much everyone I've spoken to or reached out to has been incredibly supportive and helpful and generous with their time. That was one of the things early on that made me interested in search as a career path. It's just everyone seemed very supportive, which was kind of shocking as I was thinking between private equity and or search. And so, it's just like a self-reinforcing loop where you're going to talk to more people that are fun and interesting to talk to. Then you learn more and you get more interested. And then before you know it, you've had 100 calls and all right, and you're doing this thing.
And to be clear, when you raise a search fund, that's really the first step. It's not actually acquiring a business. It is basically saying, I'm going to put whatever, 400,000, 600,000 into a pot, for you to support yourself for 2 years, looking for a business, paying rent, paying for the birth of your first child. If 2 years go by and you don't find anything, that's, $600,000 just, gone, which to your point is kind of like a venture all or nothing type investment. Are these investors essentially taking bets on, younger, super enthusiastic, smart people who may or may not have the goods to be able to deliver what they're expecting?
They are investing in more of you as a person because they have to really believe in it. And I think that's one of the reasons we also try to encourage, especially incoming first years, to start talking with investors as early as possible. You don't want your first interaction to be with an investor to be like, hey, I want some money. Can you give it to me? And then they're like, who are you? I don't know anything about you. As opposed to when you start coming into school, you start making those initial connections with investors and you're able to say, here's my thought process. And then, they kind of get to see your evolution as a person as you go through school if you're able to talk to them early and get more comfortable writing you a check where they have to have some level of comfort with you.
Let's talk about you two as being sort of, representatives of the Columbia Business School, ETA community. What is it about your personal backgrounds, the way you think about business life, that led you to be interested in ETA? Maybe we could start with Austin.
Yeah, so I've been exposed to small business for pretty much all my life. We had a family business and I was in the warehouse moving boxes. I was working with drivers, and fast forward, I went to college, got an engineering degree, went and worked in consulting, and it didn't take me very long to realize I kind of want to get back to working in a small business. And, I was kind of between private equity and the search fund. And search just felt like a way to, just directly get back in the action. I feel like I saw a decent range of challenges and none of them scared me off. In a weird way, it was kind of energizing. I like to be moving constantly, and that's what you'll find at a small business. And you're dealing with a business that stores boxes full of paper. And if you tell that to somebody who's potentially working at a larger kind of white collar firm, they might say, absolutely not. That's terrible. Like, there's no strategy. It's just all implementation and execution. But I don't know. I thought it was interesting.
So I founded a bootstrapped SaaS company. You're not in one specific role, and anyone who's in leadership of a small business is not in one specific role. You're going to be fighting a fire, and you might be working on some random problem you have with your accountant one day, and then the next day, you have a customer that's threatening to cancel, and you kind of handle all of those. And I think that for me, like, the advantage of that was that I really did enjoy that. And so both with my company that I started, I was like, my job in essence feels like was 50, 60% firefighter. And I think that I really enjoyed that challenge.
I'd love to dig into sort of how you view the different requirements of being a successful ETA investor, search fund professional. There's kind of 3 phases. You've got the search phase, and let's be clear, it's difficult, and there's tons of people knocking on the doors of CEOs everywhere, bombarding them with emails saying, can I buy your business? And then you guys step into that fray. Then there's the second part, vetting, doing due diligence on, negotiating, buying the business, deciding how much risk to take on, deciding whether or not the seller is telling the truth. And then, of course, you got to run the business successfully, which most ETA people have not done previously. So as you think about those 3 phases, what makes you think, each of you respectively, hot damn, I can definitely do this? Or are there areas where you're like, oh my God, this seems daunting?
I know this is the type of work that I want to do, so I'm going to go for it, right? Hopefully it works. I'm going to try my best. But if it doesn't, it's still what I want to do. And the search is going to be very difficult. It's going to be draining. It's going to be time consuming. It's going to be hard. I think it is a misconception that you're going to raise a search fund and then you're going to go run a business and you're going to make a ton of money. You're going to probably be working around the clock, which Rohit and I are kind of used to from having an ownership stake in a small business. But that could be difficult if you're used to call like a 9 to 5 or an 8, even an 8 to 8 or 8 to 10. It's very different when this consumes your entire life or up to 24 months while you're searching. And then 5, 7, 10 plus years when you're operating.
So I think for some context for listeners, Austin and I are partnering on a search fund together after we graduate. I don't think that there's not unicorn people that exist that are like going to be great at everything. I felt relatively confident about like the operating phase, but the search phase and the diligence phase, I felt like that would be a weakness for me. And so that's where I really focused my internships on, was to get experience there and learn from other searchers, while they're doing it and how their best practices are. Let's say you need a VP of sales or something, and it's like, well, this investor has pretty extensive network, and so they could help us with hiring a great VP of sales. And it doesn't have to be that you personally are the one that fills their weaknesses, as opposed to like incorporating other people that can help cohesively together create a really all-around strong team.
I'm glad you disclosed that you two are partnering on a search journey together. That's great. How do you think about doing it on your own as a solo searcher versus partnering with someone? I'm sure there's pluses and minuses to both, but just briefly, how did you do that calculus, and why did you end up with a partnered search?
When I worked in the family business, didn't really feel like I had a partner I could kind of rely on or work with. And that feeling of going it alone was quite challenging and probably additionally draining, and gave me a lot of gray hairs. Forget about the fact that it can kind of help balance the really hard workload. I wanted someone who could push me, and I want someone who's going to make me better, because it's going to be a little bit challenging when you're in the business nonstop to have someone who can give you feedback and just make you a better operator, a better person, keep you grounded. Rohit pretty early on was a tough cookie and would call me out on my BS, and I respected that a lot. And it's definitely helped, even in the short period of time, it's helped me kind of refine my thinking in different ways. And that's been incredibly impactful.
I came from the opposite background, where I had a co-founder at my company that I started. Having a partner there really showed me the importance and the benefit of it. It needs to be the right person, because I think that if you partner with the wrong person, it's like people say, it's like a marriage. And so it's like, if you're partnering with the wrong person, you're going to wind up, I think, creating more headaches than any benefit you get out of it. For Austin and myself, it helped that we were friends before we even discussed like anything about partnering on a search fund. And so I felt like we really came in with a really solid foundation.
Where do you see the ETA search fund movement community going?
It seems like there is institutional money moving down market, and to be determined what the impact of that is. Looking specifically at search businesses and having interned at a search acquired business and seeing different search acquired businesses, one great thing that I've seen is there really seems to be an emphasis on treating people well. And it's one of those things where you'll hear in business school, you kind of just have a nebulous line item called payroll or SG&A. And it's different when you're kind of in the trenches working with people, and maybe you have employees that work their butts off and they're very good at what they do and they have great attitudes, but they just haven't had a raise. And then you have a search acquired CEO that comes in and starts to provide these high performers with reasonable wages or above market wages. And you can really say, I'm doing something good. Like, I'm actually giving back. And that could feel a little bit different from when you're at a large firm and you're not dealing with individual people. If that trend can continue, that could be a source for good.
There's clearly interest. Like, we've seen just, in our small sample size of Columbia, I think the club has basically doubled this year. And so there's clearly more interest. The problems that people are facing today of every business owner in America has basically been contacted. I think that's still going to continue. My personal hope is pretty similar to Austin, that, I hope that this community and this aspect that I think of, like, people really pay it forward and they treat their employees, their team well. That sense of the search fund community, I'm hoping that continues, really differentiates search funds from like a traditional lower to mid-market PE fund.
I do think a differentiating factor that might explain a portion of the success of search fund acquired companies is the emphasis on people. The people in the business drive the value creation. One CEO can't do that much if it's a 50-person business or more. Something that drew me to the search fund ecosystem is this emphasis on the people aspect of the business and taking care of people and growing the business through empowering your team. I genuinely think that is a pretty big driver behind the success of these companies.
Austin Fruchter and Rohit Datta from the Columbia Business School Entrepreneurship-Through-Acquisition Club. Thank you so much for talking to Search Party today.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This was great to share our thoughts.
Search Party is sponsored by Avid Bank, Boulay, Mayer Brown, Plexus Capital, and Oberle. The lead sponsor is Next Coast Legacy.